Hello, my name is Clare Roth, and I'm a radio journalist in Columbus, Ohio. I host a program called All Things Considered, and I report the news. So I'm here to tell you what I consider are the important components of a good story. And I consider four main components to be the most critical to make a good news story. And they're interesting characters, clear direction, straightforward, easy to understand language, and an overarching takeaway. The first of those is interesting characters. So when I'm reporting a story and trying to find a good thing to talk about, a good story arc, I usually look first to the people that will be in the story. Is this person a good talker? Are they animated, excited to talk about what they know? Do they use metaphors or other cool words to spark a different way of thinking? Are they easy to understand? So one example of this is a story where we talk to someone who drives a bus for a living and is also the president of a transport workers union, so a union of other bus drivers like him. And he told us about why it's important that bus drivers keep their jobs instead of having autonomous buses or buses that drive themselves. And here's what he had to say.
The bus operator provides a vital public service that the robot doesn't, and the bus operator provides a vital public safety service that the robot simply cannot.
So he's really fun to listen to. He has a bit of an accent, he uses colorful language, but he's still easy to understand. He isn't droning on and on. So just from that sound clip alone, you can imagine what he looks like. You can imagine what he's like as a person. And in the larger story, we described him. We gave more motivating factors, so we understood truly who he was. But he wasn't some stodgy, old, boring professor or something like that. He seemed like a real person who was interesting to talk about and talk to. The second thing that I consider important in a story is clear direction. So what is the story about and where are you taking it? It's very easy for a story, either news or otherwise, to have a lot of fluff in it, but truly, a good story has direction. It moves purposefully from one part to the next. It doesn't meander or needlessly dwell on something that ultimately doesn't add to the overall theme or the overall plot that you're trying to talk about. So in this story that I'm going to play a clip from next, I talked to someone who opened an astronomy park, where people can go and look through telescopes, look through an observatory lens to observe the stars. So we'll just listen to a little part of it.
This is 89.7 NPR News. I'm Clare Roth. It's All Things Considered. The John Glenn Astronomy Park opens in Hocking Hills tomorrow evening during the summer solstice. The park houses a gigantic telescope under a roll-off roof that will be used to look at the moon, planets, and other astronomical wonders. Brad Haney is its director, and he joins me now by phone. Hey, Brad, are you excited for the opening?
Yes, I'm pretty excited. We're pretty busy right now, but yeah, I'm thrilled to see it all coming together.
Creating this park has been a dream of yours for years. Why is it so important?
People love to see the night sky, and nowadays there's a lot of lights in the cities. It's very difficult to find a nice dark place to view the stars. I wanted to create a place that allowed people to simply enjoy the night sky relatively uncluttered with the light from civilization. And it gives them a chance to make a connection with the rest of the universe.
What can people expect when they come out to the observatory?
Well, our programs will be weather dependent, of course. You can't actually view the universe through the clouds, so people should check that first. But assuming it's a nice, clear night, we will either be looking at the moon and the planets or pointing our giant telescope at distant galaxies and globular clusters, and you will see things that will knock your socks off.
So we can hear in that there was a pretty clear direction. First, he and I spoke about what the park was. Second, I asked him why it matters, why it was important. Then I asked him what people can expect, how they can be involved. So that had a very clear direction. There wasn't any fluff or any unnecessary storylines, plot lines, things that our listeners didn't need to know. The third thing that I think is really important to storytelling is straightforward, easy to understand sentences. The news is really, really complex. There's a lot of details, there's a lot of intricacy to it. So when I write or when I talk to other people, I have to make sure that when we communicate the ideas, it's very easy to understand. It's plain spoken and it's in clear language. If sentences run on too long, if they get too complex, then no one will want to listen and no one will actually understand it. So I spoke to someone who worked with the highway system, who worked with transportation in Ohio, and they were trying to describe how drones, the flying like robot things, would impact the future of transportation. And here is what he had to say about one form of transportation they were looking at.
Or even larger aircraft that would be like a taxi service that would carry a person.
Wait, an aircraft that would carry a person?
Correct. Yeah, like the new taxi services that Uber is proposing.
You think that that might be in Ohio's future?
I think it's in the future, yeah, in Ohio's future, but we just want to be prepared for it, which is the reason why we have this research proposal.
So there you can hear my kind of incredulity. I was really surprised, and I made it absolutely crystal clear that it was an aircraft that would carry a person for regular everyday travel. That is such an out there concept, at least to me, that I felt the need to say it in really plain spoken language so that our listeners would fully understand the impact of it and whether it was possible that it happened. The fourth thing, and possibly the most important thing, is the takeaway. What does a story tell us about the wider problem, about the wider world, about what it means to be human? A story can have all the other elements, but if there's no larger lesson, if there's no way that it comes back to each individual that's out there listening, then there isn't much point in telling it. So in this interview, I spoke with a woman who was helping to organize a new museum that honors veterans, people who used to work in the military.
Of course, more than 100 national cemeteries for veterans. So why is this necessary?
Well, I think that there are a lot of monuments, and there certainly are museums that talk about specific conflicts, like the World War I Museum, the World War II Museum. There are museums that talk about specific branches, like the Museum of the U.S. Air Force and the Museum of the Marine Corps. But what we didn't find was there wasn't a museum there to tell the story of veterans, to tell the story of their family members. For that story to be told and not lost to history is so important. And I think that there are lots of opportunities to see things, and we are pleased that this will be one of those opportunities.
So you can hear there, she spells out really clearly why we should care about her museum. I think that in the end of every single story, I need to answer the question, why should the listener care? You know, why do you put this in front of someone's ears or in front of their eyes? And the answer in this case is because this sort of thing's never been done before, because it honors veterans who have come before us, and because military service impacts all of us, even if we ourselves are not soldiers. So the takeaway can be simple. It can be as simple as, here is what life is like for another person. Here is how they feel and think. But it does need to be there, because otherwise I'm wasting my listeners' time. So those are my 4 storytelling tenets: interesting characters, clear direction, easy to understand language, and a clear takeaway. I hope that you guys have very good luck with the rest of your projects.